evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video, where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, yes, I know this is slightly crude arrangement because I'm not really sure if, like, I should just wait to get, like, a pin, but to be honest, I kind of wanted to do something special anyway, so you'll hopefully ignore the fact that I'm using blue tack to keep this in place on my jacket, but I think that's just kind of how I sort of wanted to do it, if that makes sense. You know what? That's just sort of how I wanted to do it. So, now if you want to go on the limb and say that if there is any other top contenders for the best song that Metallica's ever done, Fade to Black is probably one of the highest, and for good reason. Because, and I'll just say this right now, any band, any musician, in my opinion, that tackles suicide as a subject for their material, they have got, in my opinion, and probably even more than for whom the bell tolls, I think if you're going to do that, you have got a very, very important job to do, because you've got to make sure, almost more than anything else, that you get the point across, like, immediately. Because even before you even say anything, whether or not you object or you use it in terms of, like, how to tell the story of somebody committing suicide, or however you want to project your ideas, the first thing, almost beyond anything else, is that I don't think it's a good idea to leave room for ambiguity, in my opinion, because it would seem to suggest the idea that maybe you're not saying exactly what you want to say. You know what I mean? And if you're going to be that ballsy to talk about stuff like suicide, you've got to, like, see it through. You can't just, like, dip out halfway. And I'm not and it'll be interesting because I'll bring that up again for what I think about the song as a whole, because there is a sort of a slight thing I'm a little bit, like, not that I disagree with, but something I have a different interpretation than what Hetfield is going on about. So that's just what I'm going to say on the outset. So let's begin this properly, shall we? So, if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. So let's begin. Fade to Black in 3, 2, 1, and... And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That was Fade to Black by Metallica. And it's, again, I almost feel like it would almost be like pointless about why I honestly want to say this is easily one of my favourites. But I think I'll just straight up say it right now. Because I'm now even thinking to the back of my mind, which songs actually had the balls to talk about suicide? I mean, that's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to check this out. 41 about suicide, because if there's any like before 1984, then that's something I'll go for. Cemetery Drive, well that's okay. Well, I believe MCR would easily do that. Osbourne, Blaine Lawson, Ed Sheeran. I think I'm going for like the wrong list here, especially. In fact, I'll tell you what. I'll go through this one just to see if. I mean, it's got Adam's song on here as well, so I'm kind of glad for that. But is Fade to Black even Paint It Black? I suppose is probably it's not quite stated, to be honest. If in all things considered, well, I might need to think about that. But that is a pretty good one. It's Fade to Paint It Black pretty much is. How to Save a Life for the fray. Never too late's a good one as well. But that's like mid 2000s. Inside the Fire. Disturbed is long overdue to be on this. Great Escape, Pink. That's kind of interesting. Let's see. Numb, of course, you have some Linkin Park here. Courtney Parker, Bullet for My Valentine, The Dead Ships, The Smiths. Well, that was 2 years later, I suppose. So, Goodbye, I'm Sorry, Jamestown Story, Perfect Circle, The Dead Ships, Give Me Novocaine, Broken Wing. No, for whatever reason, Fade to Black is not even listed there. That's... Oh, God. But if that's anything to go by, and you probably heard me mention, like, Ed Sheeran and Pink and whatnot, that does again set a very important tone, doesn't it? That it's not just lost on people who particularly like heavy metal. It's also on those who, even in the mainstream, because I think it sends a great message. But then again, what really is the message of Fade to Black is the point I want to say. Because from my interpretation of it, and maybe because of the bridge where it says, now I'll just say goodbye, kind of like throws that idea down the drain. But I always almost kind of interpret this song as sort of the guy is literally at the very end of his life, like he can't take any more of this. Either he is in the biggest pit of deep despair you can imagine. And then during the outro is like, not his life flashing before his eyes, but he makes a comeback. He says goodbye to the person he was, because the person he was miserable, despairing. There was nothing like encouraging about that life. So he became a new person altogether. Like in my mind, I had the idea of like this was maybe a college football captain, like he was secretly struggling with depression for years, and he puts a brave face on it, and he charges out through the paper. He plays plays a match. He wins. His girlfriend, he proposes to his girlfriend. He gets his life back on track because I think he saw like more merit in staying alive because he had so much to look forward to, and he's done so much for himself. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, when I say this, you'd be very, very surprised at the sort of people who are perhaps in even more extremes than maybe just the imaginary one I came up with. That's a good point, remember, ladies and gentlemen, and there are people in this world who are desperate with hunger, reckless with misery. And again, we should consider ourselves very fortunate that we are in a much better state. I mean, forget the UK for a second and about how people are worried about pensions and about gas prices this winter. There's a lot of things to concern about. Yes, absolutely, but I count myself very lucky that, you know what, I work for a living. I pay my bills and all that. I pay to keep the lights on. I pay to, do this, even though I don't really earn anything from this. This is just what I do as a hobby, and all the rest of it. That doesn't matter. The only thing I do want to say is that but then again, remember, people who suffer from mental illnesses, it's not like they just stop having it because people are having a worse time. It doesn't quite work like that, if you know what I mean. Which is, I've always had like a very interesting sort of like theory on stuff like Fade Black, because on one hand, and sometimes it is one of the things you have to be quite biased on. You have to like give your own take about what you think about stuff like suicide and mental illnesses and all the rest of it. But the biggest one I had in my mind, to be honest, is that I sometimes flip between like extremes. Like I could go for the Tony Soprano route, saying that, thinking about that makes you less of a man, because why on earth would you? What is so shitty about your life that you want to end it right there? And there were other times where I'm very, very sympathetic towards people like that, because how on earth can we interpret perhaps some of the things they're going on? Or if we can interpret, or we know exactly what they're going through, we don't know. It's not the same for them as it was or would be for us. You know what I mean? We sometimes have very, very different reactions to this sort of thing, and that's why it's a little bit hard sometimes when the way the lyrics are done from Fade to Black, because it's almost entirely wallowing without much context as to why he is feeling this way. And I'm not saying these things to be harsh or anything like that to Metallica. I absolutely love this song. But again, these sort of things are a little bit interesting, because 40 years from now, 40 years from when this was written, people are still talking about it. It's still not only a hot topic, but it's something that a lot of people want to voice their opinions on. Also, it might help somebody if they give a take and it almost resonates. It makes sense in that light. Life, it seems, will fade away, drifting further every day, getting lost within myself. Like, obviously that means he's like in deep thought. He's constantly thinking about himself, and it's an interest I can absolutely get into that, because you think and this is something I went through like a number of years ago. It was 3 years ago, pretty much, when I started doing these. 4 actually, but it was like 3 technically. Is that I would spend hours, sometimes even weeks, without actually speaking to anybody. I would be either doing my videos or literally like anything else, because that's just how it was, to be honest, in those days. I was focused on work and I was focused on doing my videos. That's just the sort of life it was. I was barely... The only real times I would actually say anything at all would be when I was doing these, which some people think that's like bloody tragic, something like that. And there is room to interpret, yes, absolutely. But at the same time, I don't really feel that sad about it. I don't really feel that depressed about it. I like the fact that I'm here being able to do what I enjoy, and I shouldn't feel like ashamed or bad for enjoying my life, what I do with my time. The worst type of people on this earth, let me tell you this right now, ladies and gentlemen. If you truly want to make an enemy out of a man for life, tell him that his ills are incurable. Tell him that because of who he is, there's no saving him. Tell them that they are a lost cause. Because even more than emotional damage, even more than physical violence, even more than any of the corresponding things about that in terms of denunciations and reading between the lines and interpretations. There is the simple fact of the matter is that it is targeting you, the one, the self, the I. So what on earth do you think could be going through the minds of like people who just because in some ways, and I went through this many times, I'm probably even still going through it through to this day. Somebody will say something to me or give me a dirty look or whatever, and I literally do just like sit back and just ask to myself, what did they do that for? What have I done to them? You know what I mean? Some people are just jerks like that, if that makes sense. But I think there is a lot more to it than that. You know what? I do not go out of my way to make people feel miserable. I just act like myself because of how I was raised, because of what I interpret between being right and wrong. And I don't feel bad for it because, to be honest, I don't think there's anything really to be ashamed or bad about because of who I am. And I'm sorry if I'm really getting off on a tangent here, but I'm trying to play peacemaker. I'm trying to help people. I want to help people. And it's not that I'm giving up on lost causes. You would never give up on a lost cause. You try because perhaps you never know. You might be the only thing that's actually keeping them back from actually ending it all. But it's the people that say no, to be honest. Those are the people that really they sour my mood. It's the people who say no, or people who say I can't do something, or the people that just say no to that. I heavily despise the word no for that reason, because when I think of the word no, I think of all the shit that I went through in university. I think of all the shit that I go through now. I think of all the shit that people say to me and they literally cannot stand it whenever I actually have things to say back to them. Because to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, if I don't, you've got to stand up for yourself. You've got to be brave and bold enough to say, you know what, I feel bad, and I know people are around me saying that I shouldn't feel bad, or I all the rest of that. But that's just that's giving them what they want. You know what? Be honest and open and true to yourself. That's what I gotta say. You know what? If you want to feel sad, then feel sad. If you want to feel happy, then feel happy. Never, ever let anyone ever tell you what you can and cannot feel. They have no authority. They have no power over you. They cannot tell you how you can feel at any point in your life. Never, ever, ever give people that power, because once you do that, it's gone. And I don't think that's always the effect, but I've come across very, very toxic people who have been like that. And when you put it in terms like that, those are the sort of people you almost want to get away from. And again, is it really worth it just for that? You know what I mean? There's a lot of very, very unclear answers, and there's a lot of very unclear ways to ask the question. But if I was to just how we could end this video, is Fade to Black one of the best songs Metallica has ever done? Oh yeah, absolutely. Does it raise very, very ambiguous questions about suicide? Well, maybe not overtly, but it opens up to a discussion about suicide and why people feel that certain way, or do we secretly feel that way? How do we know we're not being honest to how we truly feel? But, and I said this before, part of me feels like the ending to this song is not about the guys life flashing or just it's just create a creative choice just to end it this way. But I feel like deep down, it's a comeback story. It's about a guy who was on the precipice, but he decided that he had to change. Because And you know what I mean? If that makes sense. I think that's the only way I can interpret it, because I kind of want to believe in myself that there is hope at the end of this. I want to believe there are people who absolutely have reasons to live again. That's what I want to believe in, because again, that might be the last thing to believe in when everything else is gone. But with all that being said and done, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this reaction video to Fade to Black by Metallica. I will leave phone numbers to suicide prevention charities in the comment section down below, because again, I'm going to be a man of my word, and I'm going to open up the doors to let people know specifically about if they either just want to talk about it, or if it's things playing on their mind, troubling them. Because the faster, well, not so much the faster, but when you actually begin to talk to people about stuff like this, and you're not, it means obviously you're very, very brave to even think about doing that, and no one is ever going to think any less of you for being honest, especially when it comes to stuff like this. I don't think I could even imagine anyone I know would laugh at anyone or mock anyone for stuff like this. That's just how I go, and I hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.